Hi, everybody. Peter Greenberg here. Happy Thursday. Our global travel update continues live this week from New York. Hope you're having a great time wherever you happen to be. We have lots of stuff to talk about today. We'll start first with the looming government shutdown and what it means to you. Of course, if you've got any comments or questions, you know how to put them in the chat box, and I'll go through them and answer them on this show. Of course, you can always reach out to me separately, peter@petergreenberg.com. Just make sure I have a way to get back in touch with you, and we'll answer you that way as well. And of course, then there's also our radio show every Saturday, Eye on Travel, 3 hours. Check your local listings, and if you can't find a market in your area, not a problem. You can listen to it as a live stream just by going to our website, petergreenberg.com. Now back to the possible government shutdown. We've been there before. It's not pretty. We're being reassured that essential government services in terms of safety and security will be maintained. That includes for travelers the TSA and air traffic controllers. And in the short term, at least, we can reasonably expect that to happen. However, maybe not at full strength. So you may expect longer delays getting through security checkpoints and flights being slowed down if there are not enough controllers to work the boards. You know, the one thing that will absolutely be shut down is concurrent onboard training of air traffic controllers. They've just hired 1,600 new air traffic controllers, but if the government shuts down, so does their training. Not a good sign. National parks will shut down, of course, and if you are applying for a new passport or trying to renew your old passport, those passport government agencies will also shut down, adding to the already existing backlog of processing. Not a pretty picture. This will probably go right to the 11th hour, so we'll be watching it very carefully tomorrow and Saturday. Now, speaking of other turbulence, if you've been noticing lately all the stories about in-flight turbulence, the JetBlue flight where 8 people went to the hospital, the question is it happening more now? Or is it just being reported more now? The answer is, it is happening more now. In fact, the research is out. They went back and surveyed incidents of turbulence dating back to 1972, so about a little 50 plus years. And what did they find? That those incidents are up 26%. Why is this happening? Global warming, climate change, and warmer air means more turbulence, and especially the kind that the pilots can't see on their weather radar, otherwise known as CAT, clear air turbulence. So I insist that you do what I do. And I know there'll be some people out there who are angry at me for saying this. I tend to be a little contrarian about this. I'm not a big fan of wearing my seatbelt during takeoff and landing, and I'll tell you why. Seatbelts were designed when planes took off and landed around 90 miles an hour. Today they take off at about 160 and land at about 130, 140. I'd much rather have my seatbelt off at that moment. However, I always have my seatbelt on in the air because that's when the problems really happen. So try to remember that. And by the way, where is this happening more than anywhere else? Over the North Atlantic and over the United States of America. So keep that in mind. Okay, now, speaking of turbulence, talk about a segue, the fallout from Delta's announcement about their changes in their frequent flyer programs wasn't just palpable, it's screaming. People are angry. Everything's short of pitchforks and flames. It's a big problem because Delta was essentially following in Americans' footsteps when they sort of changed their program, but Delta went even further. It's interesting to note that the chat rooms were just on fire of loyal Delta passengers saying they were never going to fly the airline again. I don't believe that. But also saying they were going to get rid of their co-branded American Express cards. The question that they were asking, of course, is why would I join a program and spend money for perks I can't get? And I think American Express was feeling the heat. The heat was then put on Delta. And just yesterday, the chairman of Delta, Ed Bastian, said, well, maybe we went a little too far. And we're going to review all this. Now, let's read between the lines. And I'm sorry I have to tell you this. He didn't say it was a mistake. He didn't apologize for that. What he said was, maybe they did it too fast. It's not that they did it. So don't be surprised if they do it anyway, but they just do it in steps or a little slower. But the problem remains that they have redefined airline loyalty programs, and not in a good way for consumers. Airline loyalty programs, let's face it, when I called Delta Airlines to ask why they were doing this, their answer was, in essence, it's not about how often you fly, how many flights you take, or how many miles you fly. Of course, that was the beginning definition of what their loyalty program was in the first place. Nope, not about that. It's about how much money you spend. That's it. Now, for those of you who know, we're talking about here, in order to qualify starting next year for the lowest tier of status in the Delta Airlines frequent flyer program, you have to spend a minimum of $75,000 just to get the lowest status, which means you get nothing. Let's be honest. If you want the highest status, try $350,000. Ouch. Remember, he didn't say they made a bad decision. He didn't say they made a mistake. He just said we did it too quickly. Well, maybe they will roll some of it back, but the fact that they did it means they can easily do it again, because when it comes to the frequent flyer programs of all the airlines, I'm afraid to tell you it's the wild, wild west, and there's no sheriff. It's crazy. And we'll see what happens. But the real essence here, and it's sad to say because I am a loyal frequent flyer, that Delta Airlines has changed their loyalty program into what? A privilege program. And it's all about the money. Those people who were chasing miles all those years feel they've been raped, feel they've been abandoned. They perceive this as an act of insensitivity and greed. And now everybody's all looking at United Airlines to see if they will follow suit. I certainly hope they don't. Now, one interesting side effect of all this, which I don't think anybody expected, is airlines like Alaska and JetBlue were first out of the gate to approach Delta's Diamond Medallion members to say, hey, if you want, we'll match your status here. It's an opportunity for some airlines to try to steal customers away from Delta. Let's see what happens. Now, American Airlines didn't make any friends when they changed their program to a all-you-can-spend program as opposed to all-you-can-fly. In fact, they threw out about 85% of their highest-tier concierge key members simply because they felt they didn't need them. Well, let me tell you something. I know of one case where a Fortune 500 CEO was thrown out of the American Airlines concierge key program. Well, it's not about how much he flies. It's about how much travel he controls at his corporation. And guess what he did? He took all the business that he had at American Airlines and shifted it to United. So the needle is starting to move. It'll be interesting to see what announcements Delta makes in the next couple of days and weeks to appease a lot of very angry frequent flyers. And in the interest of full disclosure, I'm probably one of them. What's the point of a loyalty program that does not reward you for your loyalty? Anyway, that's what's going on with Delta. Some interesting stories from both Singapore and Finland this week. Singapore is going to be the first airport to go passport free. Won't need one. I mean, you'll need ID. It'll all be biometric and a few other things. And they're doing it in Helsinki in Finland. It's going to be all biometric as well. And for those sentimentalists like me who love having stamps on their passport as sort of our own personal travel history, you better covet them because one by one they'll be going away. We'll be seeing a lot more electronic visas, and they'll become, sentimental art pieces. Now, I'm not telling you not to have a passport. You'd still have to do it. But one by one, we're going to see them lose their relevance as different countries around the world figure out a streamlined way to do it. Now, in some cases, like at Heathrow Airport in London and Gatwick as well, passport control has gone to e-gates. And I have to tell you, it's a blessing. You come off your flight, you go to an e-gate, they scan your passport, they read your eyes, and you're gone. Who wants to stand in line for 2 hours to clear passport control after an 11-hour flight? And for anybody listening in Lisbon, please talk to your Minister of Tourism and your Minister of Transport to tell them I'm personally boycotting Lisbon until you fix that. I mean, unbelievable lines at that airport because the Minister of Transport, who controls passport control, does not talk to the Minister of Tourism to understand that first and last impressions mean everything. because those lines are also on the way out of the country. It's absurd and unnecessary and fixable. Okay, now we're not done yet on today's agenda. We got to talk about what? Oh, the bad hotel resort fees are back. But I got to share one with you that Patrick Cooney, one of our listeners, shared with me. He was staying at the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas. He had a group there, and they got a great negotiated rate on the room. It was like only $24.24 a room. Must have been midweek. The resort fee was $52.10 a day. A day. He disputed it. He fought against it, and since their housekeeping wasn't around, they wiped it off the bill. Remember, I don't care what any hotel tells you, resort fees are negotiable. And if they don't disclose it when you check in or when you make your reservation, and you only find out about it when you check out, that's a clear violation of failure to disclose. And you can dispute that charge as well. Okay, now some other interesting developments around the world. We all talk about overtourism. Well, Venice, next year, it's going to cost you some money to go visit St. Mark's. If you can't prove you have a hotel reservation, they're trying to get rid of all the day trippers. Florence now wants to ban all new Airbnbs. And I love this one in Athens. All you have to do is sit at the bar at the Grand Britannia in Athens and look out over the Acropolis, bring some binoculars, and what do you see? What looks like to be millions of ants going up that hill. Well, those aren't ants, those are tourists. And on a given day this past summer, it was upwards of 30,000 of them a day in 100-degree temperatures. So in an attempt to manage their overtourism problem, not to mention people collapsing from heat stroke, the government authorities in Greece, effective very soon, and they call this, they're limiting the number to only 20,000 people a day. Ouch. Is that really going to help things? I don't think so. Okay. Now, I wouldn't be responsible if I didn't share some good news with you. Airfares right now are down 26% over a month ago. That's good news. And they're going to continue to drop. And the reason why they're continuing to drop is the airlines will tell you demand is dropping. Actually, demand isn't dropping. It's the ability to afford the flights, which is increasing, a problem. People just can't afford those airfares. And those credit card bills are coming due. And we're going to look at a very soft fourth quarter, I believe, and into the first quarter of next year. So take a look at all the new deals that are coming up. They'll be popping up on your internet for foreign destinations especially. And ironically, airfares to U.S. destinations are going to start to rise because people will figure out they can afford to go within the U.S. more than they can afford to go to Europe right now. So if you want to be strategic, wait about a month and fly to Europe for dirt cheap. Remember, the airfare to Europe this summer, $2,200 round trip and coach on some flights between New York and London. Now those airfares are down to about $700, $800, and they're going to drop even further. So there you have it. Now, a couple of other things I want to mention before we go to your questions. If you are a member of the Delta Airlines Frequent Flyer program, just for giggles, why not call JetBlue or Alaska and see if they'll do a status match? You have nothing to lose. And they're going to do everything they can to make life nice for you. If you have a co-branded credit card, I can't answer this question for you. You have to answer it. Is it worth it anymore since you're paying anywhere from $500 to $700 a year for perks you're not getting or have difficulty getting? And as for the mileage programs themselves, if you have a credit card that's linked to a specific airline program, you might want to rethink that as well. You might be much better off, instead of chasing mileage you can't redeem and spending a lot of money doing it, how about getting a cash back card and getting 1% to 2% back on all your purchases? That's a tangible asset in your hands. And right now, mileage is sort of literally up in the air. And with 34 trillion, you heard me right, 34 trillion unredeemed and unredeemable miles right now, that'll give you an idea of what you're up against. So a lot of people are now considering getting those cashback cards. All right, let's start scrolling down and saying hi to everybody. Hello, Patrick from Los Angeles. Hello, Robin from Williamsburg. MW's in Michigan. Uh, Catherine says, Happy Thursday from Bear Country, Sierra Madre, California. All right. Rosalind, hi from Denver, our very own Rosalind. Okay. And Jews checking in from Japan. Uh, Robin says, frequent flyer programs, what a joke. Yeah, but the joke's on us now and it's not funny. Nancy's saying, hi from Turnbridge in Vermont. Camilla's not in Tucson today. She's in the Colorado River. Colleen says, I agree with you regarding wearing seatbelts. I've noticed United pilots addressing the entire plane in the aisle of the plane in person before each flight, imploring people to put on their seatbelts when the sign is on, but also anytime they're not required to be up and about. You know what? That's a good practice to follow. That's what I do. So I agree. Sarah saying it's a crazy world. Alexander saying, fantastic turtles around the base of the Acropolis. Well, who knew? Yes, if the turtles don't collapse from heat frustration. Okay. All right. Our good friend John is back in New York City. He travels almost as much as I do. Welcome back, John. Okay. Alan says, what travel websites do you find most useful? Well, let me define the word useful before I get to the word websites. A useful to me is giving me information, not selling me, not pushing me to make a purchase. Giving me credible information from which I can make an intelligent decision. TripAdvisor, in essence and in theory, was a collection of like-minded individuals sharing important and useful information on the network. That's morphed into a booking engine. So I'm not a big fan of TripAdvisor. I find it entertaining, but not necessarily believable. I look at a lot of the search engine sites, the kayaks and the and such, just to give me a sense of what's going on. But at the same time, I'll hold it up so you can see it. I rely on stuff like this. It's called the Pocket Flight Guide. You have to have really big pockets to put them in. But there are 3 of these I get every month. They list every published scheduled flight in the world. This one's for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. There's one for the Americas. There's one for Asia and Pacific. I've mentioned this on the show before. One of the most helpful pieces of information I have, because I can open up to any page. Look at all those flights. And those are just the flights from, I did it, Lisbon. I mentioned Lisbon. Anyway, I find websites useful with an asterisk because it's sort of like Ronald Reagan with Gorbachev. I trust but verify. So I never rely on just one website. I need other information, plus a telephone conversation with a human being. If you forget that part of the equation, you have a problem built in. Okay? Here we go. Sue's saying hi from Bellingham. David says, I assembled a reasonably accurate history of the foreign trips I've taken over 50 years, based largely on the stamps in my passport. Then there's the succession of headshots. Well, Irma Bombeck, if anybody remembers her, she had one great line. It says, when you resemble the picture that's in your passport, it's time to come home. Whoever takes a good passport picture, I know what you're talking about. But I've kept every one of my passports since I was 12 years old. And every once in a while, I'll just entertain myself by turning the pages and bringing back those memories. Okay, greetings from Atchison. And Alan saying hi from Washington. Adrian saying hi from Surf City, Huntington Beach. Gene saying hello from Claremore, Oklahoma. Hello, Gene. All right. Okay. Thank you, John, for that note. Let me go back here. Hold on. All right. Greetings from Anaheim. Some of our friends from Tanzania are weighing in. We'll be switching from Delta Airlines. I've been seeing a lot in the chat rooms. Hello from Istanbul. And hi from Tanzania again. A note that a number of our shows are easily accessible right now. If you go on our website, and we're going to put it up right now, you can see Hidden Ireland. That's our 1-hour special called Hidden Ireland. Hidden Aegean. Hidden Saudi Arabia, that's on PBS, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV, as well as the latest season of The Travel Detective. All accessible to you, and Anthony on my team will put up the websites where you can find them. Also on YouTube and on our website right now, that's petergreenberg.com, the hidden gems of Lexington, Kentucky, and I can assure you it goes beyond bourbon and horses, or horses drinking bourbon. And then one other housekeeping note, my roundtable series for the 92nd Street Y started again yesterday. It's a 5-part series, so join me again next Wednesday. This year we're talking about a contrarian's view of travel, where not to go, or where to use certain well-known cities as a hub to get out of those cities to places you didn't know about. Yesterday we talked about Portugal and Barcelona, Lisbon and Barcelona especially. Next Wednesday, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll be talking about London and Paris, things you had no idea about. And then the week after that, we're going to do Hawaii and the South Pacific, and then we'll devote 2 of our roundtable sessions to destinations within the U.S. So if you want more information on that, just go to roundtable.org, sign up for it, and I'll be glad to see you every Wednesday between now and I think October 18th or 25th at the roundtable.org. Hope you can do that. Now, let's go to some other questions you guys have asked. Debbie says, I'm going to Madeira in May. Would you do Lisbon and the Algarve before or after an 8-day tour? And how is TAP? Okay, first of all, Madeira is great, although I have to warn you, there's so much wind on that island that I've had 2 of the roughest landings in my life, one of which was on Madeira every time, but the pilots who fly there, they're battle worn, and they know how to land, they know how to take off, but you really want to fasten your seatbelt on that one. Now, Lisbon and the Algarve, if I had a choice, if this is your first time in Portugal, I wouldn't go to the Algarve first. I would go to Lisbon and then do a side trip to one of the islands in the Azores. Unbelievable. There are 9 islands in the Azores. We've done stories on that as well on our show, The Travel Detective. You will fall in love. And one side note about the Azores, for those people who want to be entertained in a different way, you need to go to the bullfights there. But no, don't make presumptions. Nobody gets hurt and nobody dies, including the bull. It's less of a bullfight than it is a bull chase. There's no published schedule. They just go from village to village unannounced until the day before. It's all part of the community. It's hysterical. I'm not going to tell you any more except to tell you you don't have to worry. Animals are not hurt. Animals are not injured, and they don't die. They live to see many other days, but it is quite an entertaining experience, and it's a great way to meet all your neighbors when you're hiding behind barricades, and you'll see why. But check out that if you go to the Azores. Okay, Linda says, I'm taking my sister-in-law to London. It's her first trip, my 27th. Any hints? Linda, you've been there 27 times. Why are you asking me? So can you be a little bit more specific, and I'll try to help you out. Judy wants to know the situation in Maui right now, which brings me to an important point, not just about Maui, but about Morocco and Libya. If you go to our website, petergreenberg.com, we have our comprehensive list of all the aid and relief organizations with boots on the ground in all 3 locations, providing the essential help that they need so desperately after these 3 tragedies. You want to know about the situation in Maui? First of all, I would recommend everybody get an atlas. Hawaii is open for business. Western Maui is not, certainly not in Lahaina, but the rest of Maui is. And it's sort of a double-edged sword because I said this last week, I'll say it again. Hawaii depends almost entirely for its GDP on travel and tourism. It's an economic driver, it's a job creator, and there are a lot of people now in Maui who had a double loss. They lost their homes and their belongings, and they lost their jobs. We need to help them out in a big way. So you're not going to be going to Lahaina. That's closed off unless you're a resident there, part of the cleanup. No, but you can go and travel responsibly and help the economy. And if you have a particular expertise, there may be ways you could also help physically. So what I would do if I were you, if you want to go to Maui, call the hotel you want to stay in, get a front line report from them as to their own capacity issues. Many of them are housing their own employees who lost their homes. But if they want you and they can take you, go. You will make long-lasting relationships and friendships at a time of critical need. Now, the situation in Morocco is a little bit different. Some of the most attractive locations like Marrakesh are essentially up and running, but all of the villages and towns within a 300 or 400 mile radius are not. It's a bad situation, still relatively fluid, so you may want to hold off a little bit before going. I'll have more updates in the coming weeks. And the situation in Libya is just the worst. We don't even have an accurate death count. We may never have an accurate death count, but it's hovering around 20,000 people right now. We're talking serious devastation and collapse. Not just collapse of buildings, collapse of infrastructure. Things were literally washed away. So in that situation, not that any of you were contemplating vacationing in Libya, there's the human factor there that does need your attention if you're a human at all. So again, go to our website, petergreenberg.com, for that comprehensive list of all those aid and relief organizations doing that work. You can be of great, great help. Okay, a related question. My honeymoon is planned for Morocco at the end of October. My guide said we shouldn't cancel. What are your thoughts? Where in Morocco? This is from Elisa. Let me know, and I'll give you some more specific information. Dee said, she saw my piece on Lexington, Kentucky. She said, did you get the bourbon ice cream in Kentucky? No, I was working. But there is bourbon ice cream. That's a fact. Okay. Will says, can I explain the Alaska Air mileage changes? I have been reading that people are switching from Delta to Alaska now. Well, that's just what I was talking about, Will. There are no real changes in the Alaska program as it relates to their members. What they're doing is they're saying to Delta Airlines, frequent flyer members, you know what? We don't care how Delta's treating you. We'll treat you better. We'll match your status. Come to Alaska and we'll match your status, whatever status you had on Delta. So for a lot of Diamond medallions, that's a no-brainer. They'll do it. JetBlue, they'll do it. They'll match it and put you in Mosaic. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you're Mosaic for life. It doesn't mean you're Alaska Airlines for life. No, it means now you have to start accruing points and miles with those airlines. But hopefully, they won't switch to a dramatic all-you-can-spend program, which defeats the purpose of trying to get mileage and flights in the first place. So that's the answer to you, Will. Here's one from Jerome. When did you say was the cheapest time to book Thanksgiving travel this year? The actual rule of thumb is about 54 days out. So you're about there now. And the same for Christmas. But if you're going to book Thanksgiving travel, there are no great deals on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. There never have been. There never will be. That's the reason why they made that movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So my suggestion to you is to not travel on that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Travel the Friday before. Take the whole week off. And whatever you do, don't come back on Sunday and Monday after Thanksgiving. Come back on Tuesday. Because the week after Thanksgiving in the travel industry, as well as the week after New Year's, is called for a reason in the industry, the dead week. Because nobody's traveling. The week after Thanksgiving, people are recovering from their obligatory dysfunctional family get-together, and a week after New Year's, they're simply just recovering. So plan strategically, and you'll get some better fares. Okay, let's go back to your, hold on a second. I'm going to go back to more comments here. Give me a second. I'm going to scroll down here. Okay. Colleen says, I noticed a lot of hotels charge you a daily food and beverage credit of around $25 each day of your stay. They require you to buy $25 in food or beverage at the hotel each day. If you do not use this alleged credit, the balance of the amount you don't charge for food beverage goes on your daily hotel bill anyway. Is there any way to get out of this? Yes. And she says, especially if the charge wasn't disclosed before making the reservation. A double yes. All the more reason why you shouldn't make reservations online. Online cannot answer your questions, folks. Now, if your questions do get answered ahead of time and you want to still go online, fine. You go online to research, not necessarily to book. Because they can't answer questions like, can my kids stay free? Can I eat free? Or can they eat free? Will you throw in free parking? Will you not charge me $9 for a bottle of water? Blah, 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 right? Got to ask those questions. But for these little nickel and dime charges, you have to have a conversation with somebody who's in power to be able to wipe them away. That would be the manager on duty or the director of sales, not the front desk clerk, not the reservations people. They've been given no decision-making capabilities on this. right? It's nickel and diming, but it's all negotiable. Okay, I hope you know that. Uh, Vivian in Fort Lauderdale. Robin says, heading to Europe in 3 weeks with the government shutdown. If it happened, how early should we get to the airport? Now. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Give yourself an extra 2 hours just to be on the safe side. Okay? All right, here we go. Moving right along. Oh, David says, I just liked and shared Hidden Lexington this morning on the Traveler's Journal. Well, thank you, David. Colleen says, I love your roundtable show. It's very informative. Thank you. And it's such a good cause in New York City, 92nd Street. Why? I agree. Okay. Michelle says, JetBlue is matching. That's what I said. John Lample says, read Portugal, go to Cascais for R&R. Yeah, the Farrell Hotel he mentions, I've stayed there. Very quirky, very idiosyncratic, right on the water. The owner has the most interesting art collection you'll see in a long time. It's only about an hour outside of, well, John says it's 30 minutes west of Lisbon. No, it's about an hour because of traffic, but it's well worth it, right on the Atlantic. Scott says, hello from Chicago, going on vacation for the first time in 4 years. Monterey Bay and LA, two good choices, especially Monterey Bay. Okay, here we go. If JetBlue matches, for how long is it then tied to credit card usage? Well, it can be tied to credit card usage, but it's really about the number of flights you take and how many miles you fly. Normally, these matching deals are good for a year. They want to see if bringing you over there brings your business over there as well, obviously, and your loyalty. Okay, Sue wants to know, when should I book Airfare Grenada for February 7th? Well, that's high season, so you might as well book it now. Okay, Claire says, I want to fly to London in June, but it's super expensive. Any hints? Yeah, you're way too early to book. The airline computer systems rely on algorithms that are not beneficial to you. They look year over year to see how many people went last June to London, the year before, to determine what they think they want to get for that price this year. Now remember, there are some other interesting things happening this summer coming. We've got the Olympics in Paris and next summer. That will have an impact on flights to London, right? Because the smart folks who want to go to see the Olympics in Paris will not fly to Paris. They'll fly to London, take the train, and make it day trips, as opposed to the chaotic situation in Paris. But if you want to just go to London in June, the time to book that would probably be December, January, or February. But you're way ahead of the game now. And the airline computers haven't had a chance to adjust, okay? And Evelyn's saying hello from Denver. A note about this, about airline fares. What most people don't realize is that the airlines update their fares 250,000 times a day. So, you need to be able to monitor fare changes, fare drops relatively carefully, even if you want to fly to London in June and you want to know it now. Right now, those algorithms are not going to help you because they haven't seen the load pick up yet. It's too soon. When they find out that the load is where they think it's going to be, those fares will stay. When they find out that the load is not where they think it's going to be, fares will be adjusted downward. But that won't happen until December, January, or February. I hope that's helpful. Here we go. Some more chats here. Somebody else switching from Delta. Okay, I get it. Now, remember, I go back to what the CEO of Delta said yesterday. He said, I think we went a little too far, and we're going to readdress it. He did not say we made a mistake. He did not say their decision was a wrong one. What he said was we never should have done it all at once, which means they're going to do it, folks. They just may not do it all at once, right? It's like the frog in the boiling water, right? But I'm here to tell you the water's boiling. You just don't want to be the frog. So watch this space carefully. We will be talking about it in the days and weeks ahead because it's a very fluid situation. Other airlines are watching Delta's moves like a hawk because they want to see if they can either better them or join them. At the end of the day, let us not forget that the airlines make more money from their frequent flyer programs than they make as airlines. It's an unbelievable cash cow. And the money that they're making, I'm telling you right now, is more than the market cap of each individual airline. That's how much money we're talking about here. And very little that is now benefiting you, because even though Delta may roll some of those hard decisions back, that's not stopping them from devaluing the miles that you currently hold in your account. It's just going to up the ante for more and more miles to redeem for any one flight. So they're going to make it harder for you to earn miles based on the amount of money you spend for your ticket, and they'll make it harder for for redeeming miles based on what you spent for your ticket. It's a win-win for the airline and a lose-lose for you. I'm going to go out on a limb. And I'm not just pointing a finger at Delta. I'm pointing a finger at all the airlines, saying, I think you've crossed the line. I think that your frequent flyer programs, in many cases, meet the legal standard for a definition of a fraud. If I make you a promise, and I know at the time I make it, I have no intention of keeping it, that's a fraud. How many of you watching me right now have been on an airplane where the flight attendants are aggressively hawking new credit cards, mileage credit cards? And I can tell you what the script says because I've heard it so many times. If you sign up for the card, you only have to spend $1 in the first 3 months, and you'll get 50,000 bonus miles. And what they then say on the PA is good for 2 tickets anywhere you want to go. That's a bold-faced lie. Even in theory, it's a bold-faced lie. Forget execution, right? So right there you have airborne fraud, not to mention ground fraud. And what I haven't done, I should have done, maybe I'll do it now, is I'm going to start a collection of every solicitation I get in the mail every day for credit cards to earn me miles, right? Whatever you think the mileage is worth, charging me 24 to 28% interest to have those cards defeats whatever value of the ticket I'm going to get when I finally get it, if I get it. That's how crazy it is, right? That's why people are getting cashback cards. It's something they can actually hold in their hand, otherwise known as MONEY. But we're all addicted to the programs, myself included, right? We want to get mileage for everything short of breathing. I understand. But what about redeeming those miles at a reasonable redemption level? Those days are gone. And they're not going to come back. Unless, like the U.S. Department of Transportation with rulemaking, a federal agency steps in, probably the Federal Trade Commission, and accuses the airlines of being oligopoly, which they are, and gets into a system where the airlines will be required to be full transparency and to keep their promises. And if they don't, severe financial consequences. That's the only thing that's going to work. Because right now, the airlines are more interested in keeping Wall Street happy than keeping us happy. And what they don't realize is if they kept us happy, that's right, us, Wall Street would be thrilled. But by prioritizing Wall Street's money manager interests over customer service, reasonable fares, operational reliability, in the long run is going to kick them in the butt in a bigger way than they ever possibly imagined. So, there you go. All right, let's keep going here. Adrian wants to know, what is the best time to book a Delta flight in April, Costa Mesa to Johannesburg? Yeah, there's a nonstop. Just kidding. Well, not only there should be a best time, which I'll get to in a second, there may be a best way to do it. You may want to do a domestic ticket and an international ticket and not make it one ticket from Costa Mesa to Johannesburg. That's number one. Now, I know that United Airlines now flies to South Africa. I know that other Star Alliance members do. So you might want to check that out with Star Alliance to see how they're going to code share flights. The other thing you can check out with Star Alliance, and I encourage you to do this, who's ever watching, is something called the RTW ticket. The RTW ticket stands for Around the World. And every airline alliance, One World, Star Alliance, or the Sky Team has a round the world desk. And the rules are pretty simple. You can buy a round the world ticket that has to be completed in 6 months or one that has to be completed in a year. But once you do that, there's no doubling back. You have to keep going in the same direction. But it's wild how many places you can go at a very reasonable cost. Remember that $2,200 coach ticket I talked about going from New York to London? Well, for about $2,200, you can buy a ticket that goes around the world and making stops in 12 to 16 places where you want them to stop, or their co-chair partners in the Star Alliance, or One World, or SkyTeam. And you get mileage for it, which is the biggest joke, because in the old days you'd have enough mileage to generate another free ticket. These days you get enough mileage to frame on the wall because the airlines make it so impossible to redeem at the original mileage redemption levels they had promised you, which do not exist at the time you're ready to redeem them. There's another essential fraud. Now, I know those are pretty strong words, but look, if you make a promise that you know when you make the promise, and someone can prove that you knew when you made the promise that you had no intention of keeping, bingo, fraud. And something that needs to be looked into. Okay? Let's keep going here. Greetings from Istanbul. Nice to talk to you. One more thing, and that is, I know what I was going to tell you. When it comes to frequent flyer miles, we haven't talked about hotel points or even rental car points. They're lagging a little bit behind in the fare-based model, but they'll get there. So again, if you've got miles lying around, they're only going to be devalued. Same thing with points for hotels. Now's the time. I'm not trying to encourage you to do a run on the bank. I'm telling you the bank is somewhat fraudulent. And they're going to continue to devalue those miles. So what might have cost you 150,000 miles to go in business class to Europe may now cost you 750,000 miles. Yikes. Right? So that proposition of value is still lurking. I don't have an answer, although it may be rhetorical. But you need to be smart about how you manage your miles and about how you manage your pocketbook, about what's worth it at a certain point. What's your tipping point? What's your breaking point? What's your catalytic moment that's going to say, okay, enough is enough. I'm not doing that. Right? When American Airlines said to me, it's all about the spend, I said, well, since you're obsessed with spending, let me help you out. How about I spend nothing on American? And by the way, that's exactly what I've been doing. I'm using up some old credits, and when those are done, this former concierge key member, that's right, I got thrown out too, will do something else, right? I can sit in the back of the plane with the best of them, and maybe I'll just bring my own, Biscoff cookies. Then I'll be a happy guy no matter where I'm sitting. See, simple. I solved the problem. All right, let's go down and see who else is on the line. Cruise ships in Alaska. Let's talk about that. We're seeing Amsterdam doing this. We're seeing Venice doing it. We're seeing Dubrovnik doing it. Where they're either limiting the number of cruise ships that can be in their ports on any given day, or letting them know that they can't dock unless they meet certain environmental standards, and in an attempt to preserve their own communities. If you're in St. Martin or St. Thomas in the Caribbean and 6 cruise ships come in on the same day, I mean, you're exhausted. Your resources are drained. Sewage systems are struggling. Every part of the infrastructure begins to crumble because they can't handle those numbers. So one thing I would suggest, and I've done this to a number of listeners and viewers, is that if you want to go on a cruise, especially to heavily populated, popular ports, you might, and I'm not saying to forget those ports, not at all. What I'm saying is call the cruise line and say, I need some help before I make my booking. Can you confirm to me when we're in Seward, Alaska, or when we're in Cozumel, will we be the only cruise ship there? What time do we get there? What time do we leave? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because if you show up and there are 3 other cruise ships there, your experience just went from bad to horrendous. So that's my limit on that. Last couple of questions. Again, a recap on housekeeping. Our radio show this Saturday, coming from Prague in the Czech Republic. Of course, our website, petergreenberg.com. If you want to screen some of the shows we've talked to you about, whether they're hidden Lexington, or go to Amazon Prime and Apple TV for all of our hidden series of 1-hour specials. And I look forward to hearing your comments on that. And last but not least, if you are a member of the Delta Frequent Flyer program and you have any reasonable status whatsoever, you lose absolutely nothing by knocking on the door at JetBlue and at US Air to see if they'll match the status. That's where we are today. And sadly, the word loyalty has been redefined as in the absence of no other option. The true definition of luxury travel, ladies and gentlemen, is when you get to keep your options. You may not use them, but you love knowing you have them. Unfortunately, our air travel experience today is all about all the options you're no longer allowed to do. You can't even save them for a rainy day. They're off the table. So, things to think about. Again, you know what you have to do, so go out there and do it, especially when it comes to your mileage programs and what could be meaningless miles at this point. And in the meantime, we will see you a week from today in the United States, but not New York, not LA, and not Mississippi. So you got 47 other ideas to figure out between now and then. Again, I'll see you on the radio on Saturday. If you can't find a station in your local neighborhood, that's easy. Just go to petergreenberg.com, hit the radio icon, tune in at 10 a.m. Eastern Time this coming Saturday. That's 2 days from today. Until then, I'll see you next week, everybody. Please be safe, travel safe, and let's be thinking in common, sensical terms. See you next week, everybody.